Sharif, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
And we wanted to introduce a new journalist who has joined us at Dropsite News. Mesa, you're muted, but welcome to Dropsite News. What you've been here for now 1 week?
It's been a week.
1 week. How's it been?
It's a whirlwind. You guys, it's a whirlwind. You guys do a lot of work in the moment as well. So I'm hopefully catching up to speed, but
yes, unfortunately, never a dull moment over here.
Never. No. A lot of chats. A lot of chats.
It's a very robust and active newsroom. I'll put it that way. So let's start before we bring Jackie in talking about this latest news. So there's a major summit going on. What can you tell us about this summit, Sharif, between Saudi, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, that seems to be taking place in Saudi Arabia? At the same time, we get this major news that the UAE is announcing that it's leaving OPEC. So let's bracket that for a second. What is Saudi Arabia trying to put together here?
Well, I mean, the summit is coming in the context of the ceasefire that's happening in Iran right now. It's still a de facto ceasefire, as we know. The deadline expired effectively, but neither the United States or Iran has fired. And we're seeing a lot of misinformation going back and forth about what Iran supposedly is offering. From what we understand in our reporting, Iran has not changed its position since day one. And it is calling for a lifting of the U.S. naval blockade, and that it will not negotiate about its nuclear program until that blockade is lifted. There's been reporting by Axios and others that has been repeated quite often that Iran has offered a new deal that is being considered today by President Trump. But I mean, all of this is being talked about right now because there is an oil crisis that's happening because of Iran engaging in very effective asymmetric warfare and effectively shutting off, closing down the Strait of Hormuz because of the war, and really creating a paradigm shift in the global economy for this very strategic waterway that was before pretty much open. And so this summit is happening as Gulf states are discussing this. And then the UAE leaves OPEC, which is, probably the most important oil cartel in the world. And I think also if we put it in historical context, let's remember what a different geopolitical moment this is. That in 1973, after Egypt and Syria were in a war with Israel, OPEC engaged in an embargo in solidarity with Egypt against Israel and against any country that had supported Israel, including the United States. And this caused a massive oil shock, probably the first oil shock of its kind. I think it sent gas prices spiraling in this country 300% and had a major effect. Fast forward to today, over 50 years later, and we see a very, very different move with the UAE. This news just broke, so it's unclear exactly what their ostensible justification for leaving OPEC is. But they said that Saudi Arabia, which is the main kind of country in OPEC, it said that the UAE did not raise the issue with them before leaving. And it said, it quotes Reuters is quoting the energy minister as saying, "This is a policy decision. It was taken after a careful look at current and future policies related to level of production." But this could be some kind of move for President Trump, that the UAE exit somehow benefits him. He's accused OPEC of ripping off the rest of the world by inflating oil prices. So this may be something to do with that.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that it doesn't have any immediate consequences for the price of oil in the sense, or the price of gas either, for the simple reason that the UAE is way under what its kind of quota is for OPEC. OPEC, the way that it works, they'll say like, okay, we're going to set the amount of output, and we're going to artificially depress the amount of output, because if we just all pumped everything we had, the price would be too low and it wouldn't even be economically, financially viable to pump it out of the ground. So we need to balance how much we're producing. I think the UAE is currently something like 60% below what it's supposed to be producing, because the Strait of Hormuz is closed and its industrial facilities are getting smashed. At the same time, they're facing this incredible dollar crunch. They operate, they are very asset heavy. They own a lot of they own a lot of equities in the American stock market. They own a lot of treasury bills. Their sovereign wealth fund owns property and other businesses around the world. And then they operate kind of on a day-to-day basis, on a cash flow basis, where they're selling oil and gas. Dollars are coming in and they're using that to then service their debts. That now has been broken. So they need to go. That's why they reached out to the Treasury and the Fed to get this currency swap, which would allow them to basically get the Fed to backstop their flow of dollars, because otherwise they have to sell assets. They have to start selling stocks or selling treasuries. And Trump doesn't want either of those things to happen. Theoretically, this could allow, you would say, okay, what they're doing is they want to increase production because they need more cash, but they're so far below what their quota is that they can't even hit it if they wanted to. And not only that, they want to restart the war, which is just going to make it that much more difficult for them to produce. So, analysts are really trying to look at rational reasons behind why they did this. But I think we also have to take into account kind of the personality behind the Emiratis, which is kind of, I think, reflected in the culture of Dubai, like a real fake it till you make it kind of approach, that there is a kind of bluster. And in some ways, it's almost like they're high on their own supply here. Like they feel like they are as powerful as people treat them, because people have been flattering their sensibilities for a long time now, because everybody in the world wants something from them. Access to their gray market financial institutions, access to their capital, their sovereign wealth fund investments. And it seems like they're kind of buying some of their own rhetoric at this point, that they are significantly more powerful than they are. Because if you look where they are, they're among the most vulnerable. Everything about them is vulnerable. Their hotel occupancy rates, their resort occupancy rates are said to be at 10, 15, 20%. Not 10% down, but like 10% occupied. Like you're seeing, the expats, the migrant workers from the West, who do their laptop jobs in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, fleeing.
Yeah, but at the same time, they've also probably, other than Israel, engaged in the most aggressive foreign policy in the region. They have, in Yemen, Saudi Arabia, of course, is heavily involved in Yemen as well. But the UAE, the level of bombing that the UAE itself did, also arresting and torturing people in southern Yemen, in Sudan, in the Horn of Africa, in Libya, in Syria. So very trying to project its military power and as a regional influencer. And in many ways, this has backfired on them. But yes, I mean, they're weak in many ways and fragile in many ways, independent in many ways. But they're also, other than Israel, the most aggressive military power in the region.
Yeah, and beyond the region, depending on how you, right, exactly, like you said, they're responsible for an enormous amount of the fighting in Sudan. So we'll continue to watch this. This is kind of a region-shaking development to see one of the major players in OPEC say that we're walking away from it.